Schmidhead cam. I don't know if that's what you call it. We've got the camera here in the studio. If you want to follow along, you can do that through our Facebook, or I'm sorry, our Twitter page at KRN News Radio 1029, or you can go to our website newsradio1029.com and click on the on demand tab. There you'll see the little drop down that says KRN TV, or you can just head on over to our YouTube channel. We've got that set up too. You know, honestly though, I don't do much with the YouTube channel. The only reason we have the YouTube channel is so that we can use it to broadcast it to our website. So so we usually do that for the first opening of the show, the first few minutes, the first segment, if you will, as we talk about all the things that we're going to get to today, and yet we never seem to get to them all. I've got a list of things on my show sheet from yesterday that we never even got to because we got into a wide-ranging discussion, which happens a lot on the show, and I used to try to avoid it. I used to try to be more structured. I don't know what the right word is there, but I've kind of come to accept it's kind of the type of show that I do, and I like the fact that you all call in and share your thoughts about things. And if it's something that you're interested in, I don't want to just move on to something else just to say, well, we talked about all the things on the show sheet today. I've got talking today. We've got Obama's speech. We've got Joe Biden's speech from yesterday. We've got the unrealized capital gains discussion. We've got regulation costing people money. We got Trump's campaign stuff. We got the Biden crime family update. Like, all of these things are on the show sheet. And I don't want to just go through the list and say, well, we talked about it all, and then not have any interaction, not have any discussion with all of you. I've come to realize over the years that I am what in the radio world they call a reactor. So there was a book written many years ago about radio and whether it related to talk radio or sports radio or whatever, it didn't really matter, but just radio in general, that there's essentially two types of hosts. The lady that wrote the book said that there's two types of hosts. She said there are generators and there are reactors. And that obviously sounds like power plant type of discussion, right? There's generators and like nuclear reactors, whatever. But what she's talking about is, in the examples that she uses, are two of the most famous radio people of all time. And she uses Rush Limbaugh, saying that Rush Limbaugh was a generator, meaning he could do radio and generate hours of content all by himself with no interviews, no discussions, no phone calls, no anything. He could just generate content. Whereas Howard Stern was more of a reactor. Howard Stern had his cast of characters and guests and things that helped him be the best radio host that he is. And I have come to learn that I'm more of a reactor. I like to have the conversation with you, the audience. Now, I don't do a lot of interviews and I do some of that, but not a lot. But my reaction comes from all of you. So all of that to say that there is a lot to talk about today as we get into the What You Ought to Know segment. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things I want to talk about is this tax on unrealized gains. Kamala Harris has suggested in her policy statements that she wants to tax unrealized gains on investment income. And this is not, new to her. This is not her original idea. She didn't just come up with it off the top of her head and suddenly had this genius idea. This is something the Biden administration had talked about and had wanted to do and implement. And there was even some discussion about it going back into the Obama administration. And no matter who came up with it, no matter what socialist, Marxist idiot came up with it, it's just generally a bad idea. There are so many ways that this goes south, and there are so many lies and misinformation that hide the fact that this is a terrible idea. We need to talk about it, because one of the arguments is, and I've seen this already on the various social media platforms, like, oh, she's only talking about a tax on unrealized gains for people with a net worth of over $100 million. Okay. Yeah, and in 1913, when we implemented the income tax, we were only talking about, at the peak end of the range, 7% for the highest earners of the country, and only 2% for the lowest earners in the country. And even that is somewhat of a misnomer, because they capped it at $20,000. The lowest income tax rate was income less than $20,000. And you think, oh, that's not much. That's a pretty low income. Yeah, in today's dollars. In 1913 dollars, that was $635,000 in annual income. That was the equivalent. That's where inflation has gotten us. So they were taxing 2% on people who made anything, $635,000 or less. And that's where they put an end to it. And they told us, oh, it's just a tiny percent on people that make a whole bunch of money. So don't worry about how income tax will affect, low income people. But by 1919, just 6 years later, it had gone from 2% on 20,000 to 8% on 2,000. And by 1942, the lowest income tax rate that was available was 22% on $2,000. So in less than 25 years, they had gone from, just a tiny percentage on high income earners to 22% on people who made the equivalent of $38,000 or less per year. And so when we start talking about, they're only talking about capital gains, people with $100 million in net worth. They're not talking about my income tax or my retirement fund, because I don't have $100 million in net worth. Yeah, but by the time you retire in 25 years from now, or if you live longer, 40 years, 50 years, or you're younger, they're going to be robbing you too. And their tiny percentage on ultra high income earners will be nearly a quarter of your income on the average American citizen earning, the equivalent of $30,000 or $40,000 a year. From 1919 to 1942, 23 years, they went from 2% on 600,000 to 22% on 38,000. So don't kid yourself. Don't sit here and pretend that, this is only rich people that are going to be affected by this. Because the moment they implement it, and the moment they realize that they can start stealing money from people in a new way, they'll figure out that, hey, there's a whole bunch of other people that we can steal from as well. We don't have to just steal from the rich people. We can steal from everybody. And we've proven the concept, and we can do it incrementally, just a few percent at a time and just a few dollars at a time, until people will say, but if we don't steal from everybody, how will we pay for the roads? That's where they'll go. I guarantee you that's where it's going to go. So this is stupid on a level that is almost incomprehensible. But it's not just a single level where it's stupid. It is stupid on multiple levels. And we'll get into that as we get to some of the discussion today. Also, we'll talk a little bit about regulation, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago. A report out, I don't remember where this report came from. I think it was from the Department of Labor or something. No, it was in a report from Dr. Casey Mulligan, who did a study on regulations and how it costs money. Turns out the Biden-Harris administration is costing families somewhere around $47,000 in extra costs that are unnecessary, whereas the Trump administration is actually saving each household somewhere around $11,000 because of regulation. Even with all of the Operation Warp Speed and the things that they did with the vaccines and all that, still saved the average household somewhere around $11,000 during his term as presidency. So with that, we've got a whole lot more to get to as well, and we'll talk about it all right here on News Radio 102.9 KARN.